Hello, this is Brooke Brown from Trending Topics with BB podcast. Fantasy sports fans are winning huge cash prizes every day at DraftKings.com, America's favorite place to play daily fantasy sports. Daily fantasy means no season-long commitments, play whenever you want. So just pick your sport and draft your team. It's like a new season every time you play, so you're never stuck with the same players. Over $1 billion will be won at DraftKings.com this year, and you could be the next one to win big. Go to DraftKings.com now and enter promo code CULTURE to play free. That's CULTURE for free entry now at DraftKings.com. Not a fan of fantasy sports? Well, that's okay. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook of your choice and a free 30-day trial membership. Just go to audibletrial.com/trendingtopicswithbb and choose from over 180,000 audio programs. Download a title free and start listening. It's that easy. Go to audibletrial.com/trendingtopicswithbb. That's audibletrial.com/trendingtopicswithbb and get started today. Why Audible? Audible content includes more than 180,000 audio programs from leading audiobook publishers, broadcasters, entertainers, magazine and newspaper publishers, and business information providers. Hello and welcome to another rousing edition of Trending Topics with BB podcast. I am your humble host, Brooke Brown, hence the BB. We've been over this. Let's move on. Just kidding. I want to thank you to all of the listeners up to this point, and what you've been doing. And I want to let you know that you can find this podcast now, a new update. You can now hear my show on Stitcher. Stitcher is radio on demand. Download the free app today. Listen anytime, anywhere. Stitcher is an award-winning free app that lets you listen to all your favorite shows, plus discover additional shows, up to 20,000 of them. You can create custom playlists, rate and review my show on Stitcher, and it's available for you iOS, Android. It's on the Nook and iPad, and it is in over 4 million car dashboards. So on demand and on the go is convenient for you listeners out there. No downloading, no syncing, no wasting memory. Stream your favorite podcasts. If you don't have Stitcher, download it free today at Stitcher.com or in the App Store. Now, I also want to tell you that I'm also available on my website, brookembrown.com. You can get episodes, links to my social media. You can find me on Twitter at Saxy15. If you type in facebook.com/Saxy15, you can find me on Facebook. I'm Saxy15 on Instagram. I'm Saxy15 Things on Snapchat and Tumblr. I'm pretty much everywhere. So you can find all those links. The easiest way is just to go to brookembrown.com and you'll find all those. So let's get into this week's, now that all of that's out of the way, let's get into this week's topic. This week is my guest was Jimmy Dunn. Now he's a comedian, an actor. You may be familiar with his stand-up comedy on David Letterman, or you may be familiar with the CBS comedy from last season called The McCarthys. He was a star as one of the brothers and sons of that show. Hilarious. As you will hear in this podcast, I had the privilege to actually go to a taping of The McCarthys, and we'll chat a little bit about that. We talk a little bit about his style of comedy and how it differs from other comedians out there. And we'll talk about maybe a smidget of sports. I know he has great commentary. He's a Boston guy, so of course he's into those New England teams out there. So without further ado, and spoiling the rest of what the podcast has to have, I want you to listen to the full interview and chat with Jimmy Dunn.
Okay. So, Jimmy, again, I want to thank you for joining my podcast. I appreciate it. Kind of new to the podcast realm, but not a new fan, and we'll get into that in a minute. But again, I know you're out at the Borgata this week, correct?
I am. I'm in Atlantic City. I just finished the show a little while ago, and having a great week down here with a couple of really funny friends of mine. And it's one of those gigs. It's a great week, a lot of fun. You go out on the road and you get to do shows with a couple of your really good friends. It really makes for a great week.
Awesome, great. So what I kind of want to, I hope we can get all this in, but I kind of want to pick your brain on your comedy side, and then talk a little bit about McCarthy's, because I did come see a taping, so I want to get to that in a minute.
Oh, all right. Awesome, yeah.
And then we'll maybe get in a few sports stuff going on right now. So let's first start with your comedy and kind of your career. I feel bad because I was actually looking at your IMDb page earlier, and I didn't realize you were in Stuck on You.
I was in, yeah, a lot of people don't realize I was in Stuck on You because I was in it very, very briefly. I was only in the actual movie for a couple of seconds. I was in the jail cell with Matt Damon, and it was a much bigger scene when they shot it, and it got cut down, but I made the cut, but not, if you blink, you're going to miss me.
Well, it's funny because I've seen that. I love that movie, by the way, and I've seen that movie multiple times. And then when I was looking at your IMDb page earlier, just kind of checking out things, I was like, wait a minute, what scene were you in? So now it kind of rings a bell, but yeah, you would miss you if you didn't know. But anyway, I want to point that out.
Well, another thing that I was blonde in that scene too. I forget why I was blonde. I think I auditioned for some commercial and they wanted me to be blonde. So I dyed my hair, and so, yeah, you look at that movie and you go, that's not him, but it was me.
Awesome. Great. So, another thing that I love comedy and I love comics and improv. In fact, when I was in college, I wasn't in a group, but I went every Tuesday night. I consistently went to an improv show that was on campus. I love it. So I kind of want to get into your comedy because I know you pride yourself in being clean, and a lot of comics aren't clean. And so I want to kind of go into a little bit about your comedy and how that's rare these days. Not saying it's a bad thing, I'm just saying how a lot of comics tend to go the other way. So kind of get into your comedy and
sure.
And kind of, yeah.
Well, I found when I started doing stand-up comedy that if you could perform clean, you could perform in a lot more places, and those gigs turned out to be a lot better. I worked on cruise ships for years and went all over the world, and the reason I was able to do those was because I was able to perform without doing dirty jokes, without offending people. And when you go to a comedy club, it's a little bit different. I can certainly do dirty jokes, and every now and then I'll think of something funny that way, but I just feel like when people are out, and it's not my job to push the boundaries and to, some guys really enjoy getting on that edge, and some comics love to make you feel uncomfortable. I don't like to do that. I like to make sure that you're having fun, you're having a good time, and I don't want to offend you. I like to find a clean, funny joke that I think everyone can laugh at, and that'll open a lot more doors for you if you can do it that way too. So that's sort of how that started, and I'm just, if you've seen me perform on the show too, I'm not really the kind of guy that you want to see telling dirty jokes. It's not really my style. So it just kind of fits me better when I'm working clean. So that's how that all came about.
Okay. And I know, you do acting. Did you start out in comedy and then go to acting, or vice versa? Kind of how did the whole thing kind of come together?
Yeah, so I started doing stand-up comedy in the back of a bar. I was watching some comedy, and I thought, boy, I think I could do this. And I got up the courage to go to some open mic nights and tell some jokes, and started at a time where in the Boston comedy scene there was a lot of stand-up comedy. It was a new thing. It was pretty dangerous. People weren't watching it on the internet like they are today. It wasn't on Netflix. You had to go to a comedy club and see it. So there was a ton of work, and I was able to get on stage every night when I first started out, and that helped me really learn how to do what I was doing. Through that, I got into a bunch of sort of side acting gigs. I did a bunch of TV commercials, and I hosted a few television shows in Boston, sports programs on NESN, on the New England Sports Network. I did a show with the Red Sox, and I did a show with the Boston Bruins, which is really cool. But I really haven't done a whole lot of acting. And then I act on stage. I play this big dumb guy character on stage. And when they were casting the McCarthys, I got lucky that they were sort of looking for that big dumb guy, which is really what I do. And I was just the perfect fit for that character, and I was lucky enough to get an audition in Boston. And then they flew me to LA, and I auditioned in LA a bunch of times, and got the role. So it was the perfect part for me because it's really what I do on stage. It's sort of that big dumb guy, but every now and then he says something, and you go, I can't believe he knows that, and it just kind of fit perfectly for me. And that's how I got it. That's how I got that job.
Awesome. That's awesome. Okay, great. So I kind of don't want to leave you hanging and leave all of the podcast listeners hanging. So it shouldn't be a surprise, but I am a blockhead. So,
that I know.
So the week that the new kids were getting their star on the Walk of Fame, we came out for that. A bunch of my friends who are also blockheads, and then that next night we came to the taping and watched.
Yeah.
So I got a chance to see all that, and that was my first time coming to a sitcom taping. So it was a blast. But what was it like every week with all of us crazy blockheads in the audience? Was it overwhelming? Was it
No, not
weird?
one bit. I love the block. Let me say this: I love the blockheads. I grew up in Boston, so I knew all about the new kids, and I knew about Joey, and I had never met Joey until we did the show, but we had a lot of the same friends back in Boston, and I knew of the blockheads, but I had no idea how spirited they are. They're an army. They're an army, and they would come to our tapings and be so supportive. And I've learned to understand that they support everything that any of the new kids do. But they were just so great to us at the tapings, and they were loud and they laughed hard. And you were there at the tapings. It was so much fun. But they also, one of the things that I really loved is they immediately embraced me as part of the family too. And so they loved me as Sean. They loved me as Jimmy. Now that I'm out doing stand-up on the road, I have all kinds of blockheads coming to the show. A lot of blockhead fans coming to my shows, which is great. And then when the new kids played New York City, I went to New York City with my wife, and Joey got us all hooked up, and went and took in, my first new kid show at Madison Square Garden, and I got to experience that with all the blockheads too, and it was amazing. I love their energy. I love their spirit. They're so much fun, and they were hugely supportive of our show. And then when it looked like we were in trouble and they might be taking our show off the air, they were hugely supportive there. I get emails and texts and people. There were a couple blockheads at the show last night, and I love how they've embraced me, and they go crazy for Joey. You saw the show. Did we do the little singing and dancing number that we did at the taping that you were at?
Yeah, it was awesome. I didn't know that Jack McGee could sing. That was fantastic too.
Yeah, Jack's a really good singer, and he loves to sing, and he loves the oldies too. He sings all the time, so he'd just be walking around the set, and Jack would be singing, and so they worked that out. And even I have no musical talent at all, so I would come out and fake like I was playing guitar, and it was a blast. That's my favorite part of the taping every week was when we did that, and we heard from a lot of the TV executives that were there that our tapings were like no other. It was a party. It was a blockhead party at our tapings, and you can feel that energy when you watch the shows. You can definitely feel the laughs And it certainly, we knew that if we screwed up, they'd have our backs and they would laugh and we'd do it again and they'd make like they'd never heard it before. And, it was great. I made a lot of new friends from the new kids on the block. And I got to meet a bunch of them too, and they were really cool too.
That's awesome. Great.
Yeah.
But I had that experience with my friends. We had a blast at the taping.
So much fun, isn't it? Those nights were just magical, and we work all week to get that thing right and as right as we can. And there are 120 people working on that show, and so we start Monday morning with a new script and work through it all week and make it funnier. And they build the sets and they build, the effects and all the props and the hair and the makeup, and they work hard all week, and then that taping night is just a big party. And then after, when we wrap the show, it's just so much fun. We hang out on the set for a while, and we used to go out to eat afterwards, and it was just a lot of fun.
Great, and not to bring down the mood here, but so
it's okay. It's all right. Look. It is a downer that we didn't get to keep doing it, but at the same time, I look at it like this: it's an absolute blessing that I got to do it, and all the people that are in my industry that do stand-up comedy and that do comedy acting, they all dream about sitting on a sitcom couch and doing that gig, and so few people actually get to do it. And I got to do it for 15 episodes. I got to live in Los Angeles for a year and do it. It was the most amazing year of my life. And it's disappointing that we didn't get renewed, and that really just comes down to business and numbers, and that's part of the game. And I understand all of that. It is heartbreaking that we're not doing it, but I get it. And I'm not the kind of guy who chooses to be sad about stuff like that. I just look at it going, all right, well, if I never go to LA again, that was worth every second of it. But it also opened the doors for me for all kinds of other opportunities. So I don't feel bummed out. Obviously I wish I was doing it, but I feel blessed to have been able to do it for a little while.
Awesome. Well, what I was going to get at is, as you mentioned, there were like 120 people that worked on the show. So
yeah. In
terms of now that it's, you guys haven't been doing it, everybody's been able to move on, correct? Like you just kind of mentioned, right? Like that's a lot of people to be like, oh, we're working on this really great sitcom, and then all of a sudden, things change.
That's sort of the nature of that business. And we were very lucky that the crew that we had on our show had all just came off a very successful run on How I Met Your Mother. They all worked together on that show for I want to say 7 or 8 years. They were all together. So they had a very steady job for 7 or 8 years, and then they got this show, and they were really happy with this show and thought that they'd be there for a while. I made friends with a lot of the guys on the crew, a lot of the ladies on the crew as well, and they all got on another show. They all got on another show this season, but then I heard that wasn't doing well ratings-wise. That was the last I heard. But that's the nature of the business. They go from job to job, and it's the same with the actors. It's the same with the writers. And I heard that a lot of the writers get staffed on other sitcoms, which is great. But that's Hollywood, One day literally one day, I'm on the side of a billboard on Sunset Strip, and then the next day I'm unemployed and I'm back to doing stand-up comedy.
Yeah, I guess that is the belly of the beast there. So to kind of move, before we move on to other topics, I just wanted to chat a little bit. We'll get back to your comedy that you just mentioned.
Sure.
I want people out there who are seeing your stuff. You also do like corporate comedy, is that correct?
Yeah, I do a lot of, I get hired a lot to go to corporate events and trade shows and things like that where they'll be there for conventions. They'll be there for 3 or 4 days, and on one of the nights I'll perform after they have a big dinner or banquet, and I do a lot of sort of banquet comedy. it's great. I get to go to some really nice resorts all over the world. There's a lot of travel involved with that, which I'm not super crazy about, but that's part of the job. But yeah, I do a lot of that stuff, and it's great.
Well, I was just noticing when I happened to look on your website before that you did previous events. Was one like Make-A-Wish or is different nonprofits, or does it vary based on the event?
Yeah, it's all different based on the events, but I do a lot of charity events in New England as well. I get to perform at a lot of those. A lot of the athletes in Boston have different foundations, and I've performed for all of those. I've performed for David Ortiz's foundation. I've done some stuff with the Patriots. I've done a bunch of stuff with the Bruins. I did the Comics Come Home show with Dennis Leary and Cam Neely. So yeah, I do a lot of those charity events as well, but I also get hired by companies to come entertain at their parties. And yeah, I get paid to do that, so it's great.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Well, I just kind of wanted to let, the listeners out there know about that. So now that we've kind of covered comedy and we've covered the McCarthy bits, let's go into sports. So, in terms of, do you watch like MMA or all of the fights going on?
I do watch a little bit of the MMA. I have some friends that do that stuff, so I do watch some of that. Usually those events are on Saturday nights, and usually I'm out telling jokes somewhere on a Saturday night, so I don't get to see a whole lot of it live, but you get to see so much of that now on the internet, which is cool. I'm a huge football fan, obviously, being from New England, and huge Tom Brady fan and a Patriots fan, and I'm also a big Bruins and a Red Sox fan. Celtics fan. I'm a Boston guy. When I was a kid, I used to work in the Boston Garden, and then as I got older, I worked at Fenway Park for season 2 as a writer on their pregame show. I wrote some jokes for that. So I've been lucky I got to see the Red Sox win the World Series, and I was working for the Red Sox that year, so that was a really cool thing.
Awesome. So the nail biter of the game this last Sunday, were you I'm a fan too, so I was kind of like, are we going to win? It was one of
that was an amazing game. Yeah, that was quite a game.
Yeah. So the reason I kind of wanted to get into sports a little bit is because I see your tweets and stuff during certain events, and we kind of go back and forth, and I just kind of thought it was fun, but so other than New England sports, in terms of New England sports, the Celtics this year, your thoughts on the fact that, they're getting better, they had 3 straight wins. Has the rebuilding is it better now? Do you think we have a squad?
I'm not going to lie, I can't talk a whole lot on that because I really haven't watched much. I get more into basketball once football season's over. But I really haven't seen much of the Celtics. It was weird when I spent last year in LA, and I bought all the packages so I could watch everything in LA. But it's just so weird that the game's on at 5 o'clock out there. So you're just coming home and you're maybe eating dinner. We would watch the Bruins games with a bunch of the Boston guys out there. That was fun. And I got to go to a couple of the Bruins games when they came out and played in LA, but. I really haven't watched much of the Celtics. They got a young team, and it's exciting to hear that they're playing hard. But I really haven't watched too much of it.
Gotcha. Well, it is kind of distracting when football's still going on, so I agree. But I just happened to notice they were winning as of late, so I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on it. But so I just want to let the listeners kind of know out there that you said you were in Atlantic City this week. So anything coming up?
Yeah, I'm back home in Boston next week at the new club in Boston, which is called Laugh Boston. It's down on the waterfront in Southie, and it is one of the nicest clubs in the country. It was a completely new build. They built this building just to be a comedy club. It's in a hotel, but they built it out They built up this room just for comedy. And it's a gorgeous building. It's a great comedy club. And I'm back home in Boston I'll be home for Thanksgiving, and then I'll do these 3 shows, the 2 nights after Thanksgiving. So, I'll be doing that. And then I do a lot of corporate events over the holidays, do a lot of corporate, parties. And then hopefully first of the year I'm back out in LA for pilot season, and, who knows, maybe get another TV show.
Awesome. Well, I don't want to keep you. I know you're out in Atlantic City and you've been doing shows, but I do want to thank you for joining my podcast. And for those that don't know, where can we find you online other than like your website and your Twitter and all that?
Yeah, so my website's jimmydunn.com, and there's a mailing list there as well you can sign up for. And then when I'm in your town, I'll send out an email. My Twitter is @JimmyDunnComedy, and my Instagram is @JimmyDunn. And lately I've just been more on the Instagram. There's just so much anger and discourse on Twitter and Facebook, and I just like putting out funny pictures and my job's to make people laugh, and everything else, it sort of seems on the internet, everybody's just so angry at each other, and I just try to make people laugh with stuff. So follow me on Twitter and Instagram. You'll have some fun there.
Great. Well, again, I want to thank you for joining the podcast, and we definitely will have to do this later, or hopefully maybe when you get a new show, like you said, in pilot season. So it was great talking to you, Jimmy, and I appreciate you for joining my podcast, and look forward to following your dates. And if you're ever out here in Arizona where I am, I will definitely come see you at a club that we have here in the Phoenix area. So, again, thank you so much, and I hope you have a great evening or rest of your night.
Hey, thanks so much, and thanks for the support. I really appreciate it. I know that you're a big fan of the show, and I love that you guys see a taping, because those nights were just pretty cool. So, thanks for the support, and we'll talk soon.
All right, sounds good. Talk to you later.